Hello, this is Crash Course World Literature. I am John Green, and today we're going to learn about Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Confessions. Confessions is an autobiography. An autobiography is a piece of literary work written by and about the author. This autobiography could perhaps be considered different in reference to how Jean-Jacques Rousseau presents himself to his audience. For instance, on the first page he writes, "This is the only portrait of a man painted exactly according to nature and all its truth that exists and will probably ever exist." What Rousseau is saying is that this is the most truthful writing ever, and that everything ever written or told after this point is wrong, which proves his arrogance towards his own opinion. Confessions is different from other autobiographies because he discusses the embarrassing and unsavory experiences during his life, starting with childhood and eventually reaching adulthood, where he begins to fine-tune his social and political philosophies. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was born in Geneva, Switzerland in 1712. His mother died soon after his birth, and his father virtually abandoned him at the age of 12. Orphaned at such an early age, Rousseau spent many of his years living in the homes of various employers, patrons, and lovers, working variously as a clerk, engraver, and as a private tutor. It was during these years that Rousseau committed many of his childhood antics. In 1742, he was 30 years old and had made his way to Paris, where he managed to make a living as a teacher and copier of music. In Paris, he befriended Diderot, who was a major figure in the dawning intellectual movement that would later be called the Enlightenment. Rousseau had his first major success as a writer when he was at the relatively old age of 40. In 1752, he won the prize from the Academy at Dijon for his first discourse on the arts and sciences, which he composed in response to the Academy's question, "Has the advancement of civilization tended to corrupt or improve morals?" Rousseau answered, arguing that the advancement of civilization corrupted human morals and goodness. This is later told and retold in his later philosophical works. In 1761, he gained popular notoriety with the publication of his novel, Julie. His fortunes changed the next year, however. In 1762, Rousseau released The Social Contract and Emile. Emile. Thank you, Stan. A novelistic change on education. His works were very much disliked and then publicly burned in both Paris and Geneva. The French monarchy ordered that Rousseau be arrested, so he fled to
Nechatol.
Then he renounced his Genevan citizenship and began working on Confessions, which is right there. Looks like it's time for the open letter. Let's see what the open letter has for us today. Oh look, an Eiffel Tower. Pointy. An open letter to France. Dear France, Americans often give you a hard time for being, well, French. But I see how awesome you really are. I mean, look what you gave America. From the freedom to have our own government to the basic freedoms provided by that government. You gave us baguettes and the brie cheese to eat it with. And don't forget the Statue of Liberty and like 13 freaking states. So we as Americans are thankful for you, France, even if we still make fun of you sometimes. Best wishes, John Green. According to Rousseau, needs come from passions. This makes people desire an object or activity. In the state of nature, human needs are limited to those things that ensure survival and reproduction, including food, sleep, and spoodily pooping. As time goes on, these things become necessities. Rousseau's conception of need, especially the more artificial types that dominate modern society, are elements of his philosophy. Even the wealth that exists in such a country as the United States, and the extent to which consumerism is the driving force of its economy, Rousseau focuses less on places traveled and jobs held than on his personal traits, unrequited loves, and sexual frustrations. He speaks at length of his significant relations with women, including his rather unremarkable longtime companion, Thérèse Le Vasseur, and the older matron, Madame de Warens, at whose home he often stayed as a young man. Rousseau describes in great depth his thoughts about women, and this led to his many ideas and philosophies about nature. Although never formally educated, Rousseau read widely throughout his years about philosophy, political science, and modern and ancient literature. His many influences as a thinker are evident in his own work. As a political philosopher, the area of thought for which he is best known, Rousseau thoroughly engaged in the work of his immediate predecessors such as Hobbes, Grotius, Montesquieu, and Locke. whose negative ideas about the state of nature conflicted with Rousseau. His goal was to mediate the thoughts of theorists on both ends of the philosophical spectrum. In certain instances, he seems to embrace the view of conservatives such as Hobbes and Grotius, who claim that agreeing to abide by a centralized government is the only means by which human beings can escape from the brutality of the state of nature. At the same time, however, Rousseau shared the concerns of liberals such as Montesquieu and Locke, who argued for maintaining individual rights and protecting naturally free human beings from the abuses of an artificial state. Although he respected these conflicting modern influences, Rousseau was a devoted classicist. Rousseau's philosophical project was to describe the passage of human beings from their natural state into a civil society and to understand the different virtues of each state and the ways they could be arbitrated between to provide for the greater common good.
Mr. Green, what were Rousseau's philosophical works?
The philosophical context for Rousseau's work was the Enlightenment. The Enlightenment was centered in France, and his key thinkers were often called the Enlighteners. They included Voltaire, Diderot, and d'Alembert. These writers had a diverse array of ideas and opinions, but the common idea was a great faith that human reason, rationality, and knowledge could be the key factors in human progress. Accordingly, they were hostile to religious principles, received knowledge, superstition, and blind faith of any sort. Rousseau's thought had a wide historical impact. As a writer on politics, his ideas laid much of the intellectual groundwork for the French and American revolutions, which were both pretty bloody, but not as bloody as, wait for it, the Mongols. Confessions in many ways inaugurated the modern genre of autobiography, and has greatly influenced literary theory and narrative techniques for over 2 centuries. As a theorist, Rousseau rigorously attempted to describe the rational foundations and underlying modern civil society and all its imperfections, and his echo has been felt in the works of the most influential social philosophers since his time. This has been Crash Course World Literature, Confessions. I'm John Green, and as always, thank you for watching.